Stop, breathe. Feel the quiet space behind your ribs for just a moment. In the first 3 seconds of hearing this, something inside you already recognized the truth. You're tired of performing, tired of smiling on demand, tired of being useful, agreeable, available, efficient, responsive, optimized, and endlessly pleasant, while something sacred inside you slowly goes dim. Society taught you that exhaustion is proof of virtue, that overextension is loyalty, that self-neglect is maturity. But what if your internal fire was never meant to be public property? What if the most spiritual act available to you right now is not sacrifice, but sovereignty? The world is louder than it has ever been. Notifications compete for your nervous system. Outrage competes for your attention. Algorithms compete for your identity. And quietly, almost invisibly, your inner hearth has been drafted into a war it never volunteered to fight. You feel it as a subtle depletion, a background hum of fatigue, a sense that you are everywhere for everyone and nowhere for yourself. This is not laziness. This is not weakness. This is spiritual burnout caused by the outsourcing of your life force. In ancient symbolism, Vesta was the keeper of the sacred flame, the guardian of the hearth fire that sustained life and meaning. That flame was never rushed, never scattered, never exploited for spectacle. It was protected, tended, honored. Today, that same flame lives inside your psyche as your creative autonomy, your spiritual focus, your right to choose where your energy goes. But modern life has rebranded distraction as productivity and people-pleasing as goodness. Hustle culture whispers that rest is regression. Social conditioning rewards visibility over vitality. And so you give and give and give until your inner fire becomes a pilot light instead of a sun. You know this feeling. Saying yes when your body says no. Answering messages you resent. Showing up with a smile while your spirit asks for silence. Living performatively so others remain comfortable. This is the quiet extinction of the inner hearth. And the cost is not just emotional. Your nervous system absorbs every forced interaction, every swallowed boundary, every moment you abandon yourself to maintain approval. The body keeps score. The spirit keeps record. The flame flickers. Many of you watching right now feel an unnamed guilt when you try to rest, a strange anxiety when you disconnect, a reflex to explain your boundaries so thoroughly that they dissolve. This is conditioning. You were trained to equate self-devotion with selfishness, but the sacred fire cannot survive constant exposure. It needs containment, intention, protection. The first step to reclamation is not dramatic reinvention. It is honest recognition. Where has your fire been dimmed by the need to be liked? Where has your time been traded for validation? Where has your presence been fragmented by digital noise? Notice the patterns without judgment. Awareness is oxygen for the flame, and something profound is happening collectively right now. As global systems accelerate, more souls are sensing the spiritual cost of constant availability, the pressure to respond instantly, the expectation to witness every crisis, the performance of empathy without true capacity. You were not designed for perpetual reaction. You were designed for deliberate creation. There is a difference. One drains, the other generates. This phase of your life is not demanding louder effort. It is inviting quieter alignment. The universe is not measuring your speed. It is observing your boundaries. Not how much you can carry, but how consciously you choose what to carry. And here is the deeper truth. People-pleasing is often a survival strategy learned in environments where harmony required self-erasure. You adapted brilliantly, but adaptations can outlive their usefulness. What protected you then may be exhausting you now. Your spirit knows it is time to evolve from approval-seeking to flame-keeping, from overexposure to intentional presence, from reflexive yes to sovereign no. This is not rebellion. This is restoration. You are not withdrawing love from the world. You are refining how it flows through you. Imagine your energy as a sacred fire in a stone sanctuary. Every unnecessary obligation is wind. Every performative interaction is debris. Every boundary is architecture. Protection is not isolation. It is intelligent design. And the moment you begin to guard your flame, something remarkable happens. Clarity returns. Creativity resurfaces. Your nervous system softens. You stop reacting and start choosing. This is the reawakening of spiritual autonomy. This is Vesta within you stirring. You may feel a quiet urge to cancel plans, to log off, to sit in stillness without explanation. Honor that impulse. It is not avoidance. It is recalibration. This phase isn't about action. It's about restraint. The universe is watching how you respond, not how fast you move. And as you listen, you may notice grief rising. Grief for the years spent overgiving. Grief for the self you postponed. Let it move through you. Ash fertilizes future fire. Nothing was wasted. Every experience taught you the value of your energy. Now you're ready to protect it. You are not here to burn out for applause. You are here to burn steadily with purpose. The sacred flame was never meant to entertain the crowd. It was meant to sustain the soul. And the moment you truly understand that people-pleasing loses its power, the world will still make demands, but you will meet them from center, not compulsion. From devotion, not depletion. Your hearth is calling you home. Feel the shift happening within you. The moment you stop scattering your energy, awareness sharpens. What once felt like vague exhaustion now reveals a precise pattern. Your burnout is not random. Your overwhelm is not accidental. There is architecture beneath your experience. A spiritual geometry mapped long before your first breath. This is where we move from the collective story into your personal design. Because protection is most powerful when it is specific. In astrology, Vesta is not merely a symbol of service or sacrifice, as it was once narrowly interpreted. Vesta represents consecrated focus, sacred containment, devotion directed with intention rather than obligation. In your birth chart, Vesta marks the chamber where your inner fire is meant to be guarded, not spent carelessly. It shows where your spirit requires sanctity, where your energy must be deliberate, where boundaries are not optional but essential. Think of it as the blueprint for your personal fortress. Many people try to set boundaries using borrowed language and generic advice. They mute notifications, schedule breaks, repeat affirmations. Yet something still leaks. That is because true energetic protection must align with your innate design. Your Vesta placement reveals the precise entry points where social conditioning slips past your defenses. The sign describes the psychological style of your devotion. The house describes the life arena, where your flame is most vulnerable and most powerful. When you ignore this blueprint, you end up defending the wrong gates, while leaving the true entrance exposed. This is why some of you feel exhausted in relationships while others feel drained by career visibility. Some are depleted by family obligations, others by social media performance. The pattern is encoded, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. If your Vesta sits in a communication-oriented sign, you may overextend through constant explanation, teaching, messaging, and emotional labor through words. Your voice becomes overused. Silence becomes medicine. If your Vesta rests in an emotionally attuned sign, you may absorb the moods of every room, becoming the regulator of everyone else's feelings while neglecting your own. Solitude becomes restoration. If your Vesta occupies a productivity-driven sign, you may worship usefulness, tying worth to output, volunteering for burdens that slowly erode your vitality. Stillness becomes rebellion. If your Vesta lives in a relational sign, you may sacrifice personal rhythm to maintain harmony, smoothing tension, accommodating endlessly, confusing peacekeeping with self-betrayal. Honest boundaries become sacred practice, and the house placement deepens the map. A Vesta positioned in the public sphere amplifies pressure to perform, to be visible, to carry professional identity like armor that never comes off. A Vesta rooted in the private sphere intensifies domestic or ancestral obligations, where family expectations quietly consume personal time. A Vesta aligned with community spaces can disperse your energy across networks, causes, and group responsibilities until your individual needs fade into the background. Vesta centered in inner psychological terrain can trap your flame in perfectionism, self-critique, and internal vigilance that never rests. These are not flaws. These are sacred assignments requiring conscious stewardship. The traditional narrative framed Vesta as self-sacrifice, as noble depletion in service of others. But that interpretation belonged to eras where individual autonomy was suppressed for collective survival. The modern spiritual landscape demands an evolved understanding. Vesta now asks for radical sovereignty, self-devotion, conscious stewardship of attention. You cannot offer true light to the world if your flame is constantly exposed to storms. Devotion without boundaries becomes martyrdom. Service without containment becomes self-erasure. Sovereignty transforms both into sustainable presence. Notice what happens emotionally as you consider this. Some of you feel relief, as if permission has finally arrived. Others feel resistance because identity has been built around being needed. If you are not the helper, the fixer, the reliable one, who are you? This question is not a threat. It is an initiation. You are being invited to exist beyond utility, beyond applause, beyond roles. Your worth is inherent, not earned through exhaustion. And as this truth settles, your nervous system begins to unclench. You may notice subtle sensations, shoulders lowering, breath deepening, jaw softening. The body recognizes safety before the mind does. Safety comes from alignment. Alignment comes from honoring design. This is why generalized productivity systems often fail sensitive souls. They optimize output but ignore sanctity. They measure efficiency but overlook energetic cost. Your chart does not demand more hustle. It demands intelligent devotion, strategic presence, sacred focus. You are not meant to attend every invitation. You are meant to tend a specific flame. And here is what is quietly aligning in this season of your life. You are being tested in discernment. Not how much you can handle, but how precisely you can choose. Invitations that once felt flattering now feel heavy. Obligations that once felt automatic now feel negotiable. This is maturation of sovereignty. The universe is refining your yes. Every no strengthens your perimeter. Every pause reinforces your foundation. Every moment of conscious withdrawal rebuilds the fortress walls around your spirit. Avoid the temptation to justify every boundary. Over-explaining leaks energy. A centered no carries quiet authority. Avoid the reflex to rescue every discomfort in others. Not all tension requires your intervention. Avoid equating availability with kindness. True kindness respects capacity. What is being strengthened now is energetic integrity, the congruence between your inner truth and outer action. And when integrity stabilizes, your flame burns cleaner, steadier, brighter. Imagine your life as a citadel built around a sacred hearth. The architecture is unique. The gates are selective. The flame is constant. Visitors are welcomed with intention, not obligation. This is not isolation. This is consecration. You become harder to drain and easier to trust. Your presence gains gravity. Your words carry weight. Your creativity flows without strain. This is the power of a Vesta-led life beginning to form structure. And remember the timing. March 2026 carries intensified collective noise, accelerated narratives, emotional contagion moving through digital channels at unprecedented speed. Your sensitivity is not weakness in this climate. It is instrumentation. But instruments require tuning and protection. Without containment, sensitivity becomes overload. With boundaries, it becomes wisdom. This phase is not asking you to disappear. It is asking you to define your perimeter. Not to reject the world, but to engage it from sovereignty rather than compulsion. You are learning to guard the sacred without apology, to protect focus without guilt, to choose devotion without self-abandonment. The fortress is not built in a day. It is formed each time you honor your design over external pressure. Each time you listen inward before responding outward. Each time you treat your energy as sacred currency. Your flame is not fragile. It is powerful. But power requires stewardship. Come back to your breath. Feel the quiet intelligence of your body regulating itself without applause, without permission, without performance. This is where your sovereignty becomes somatic, not an idea, not an affirmation, a lived physiological state. Because your inner fire is not only spiritual metaphor, it is neurological reality. Your nervous system is the circuitry through which your sacred flame expresses itself. And in 2026, that circuitry is under relentless demand, alerts, headlines, emotional contagion, manufactured urgency. The modern attention economy competes directly with your biological need for rhythm and recovery. If your system is constantly activated, your flame cannot stabilize. It flickers under pressure. It consumes fuel too quickly. It mistakes vigilance for vitality. This is why spiritual protection must include nervous system insulation. Without it, insight becomes overload and empathy becomes exhaustion. Notice your baseline state lately. Is your body braced even in stillness? Do your shoulders hold invisible weight? Does your mind scan for updates before it scans for peace? This is not personal failure. This is environmental saturation. The media landscape runs on outrage cycles because outrage sustains engagement. But your physiology was not designed for perpetual alarm. Cortisol was meant for brief survival spikes, not continuous background presence. When activation becomes chronic, your perception narrows. Creativity contracts. Patience thins. Your sacred fire shifts from steady glow to survival flare. And survival is not where purpose thrives. Vesta teaches containment, focused devotion, intentional tending. To apply this wisdom now is to build insulation rituals that protect your internal spark from external volatility. Start with physical sanctuary, a defined space where your body recognizes safety through repetition. It does not need grandeur. It needs consistency. A chair by a window, a mat on the floor, a corner where devices remain silent. When you return to the same protected space daily, your nervous system learns a new association. Here, I am not required to perform. Here, I am allowed to exist. This predictability lowers physiological threat response. Your breath deepens without effort. Your mind unwinds without force. The flame steadies. Then create digital sanctuary. Not total disconnection, but intentional filtration. Disable non-essential notifications. Curate inputs. Choose when to engage rather than reacting on demand. The difference seems subtle, but requires agency. Each time you decide your moment of entry, you reinforce sovereignty. Each time you refuse algorithmic urgency, you reclaim cognitive territory. Your attention is life force. Leakage is depletion. Containment is preservation. Introduce rhythm rituals that anchor your system. Morning light before screens. Slow breathing before speaking. Silence between tasks. These micro-pauses regulate vagal tone, restoring parasympathetic balance, allowing restoration to occur alongside responsibility. You do not need retreats in distant mountains to access stillness. You need deliberate intervals of non-reactivity woven into ordinary hours. This is practical mysticism. Spirituality integrated with neurobiology. Feel what happens when you hold your center while the world accelerates. At first, discomfort arises. The habit of urgency resists interruption. You may feel restless, guilty, unproductive. Stay. Discomfort is detoxification from adrenaline dependence. Beneath it waits clarity, a quieter intelligence. The ability to respond rather than react. Reaction is reflex shaped by external stimulus. Response is choice shaped by internal alignment. Vesta energy lives in response. Devotion guided by intention. Action rooted in centeredness. This somatic steadiness becomes your shield in outrage cycles. When narratives provoke instant emotional investment, you observe before absorbing. When collective panic escalates, you regulate before engaging. This is not indifference. It is disciplined compassion. You cannot stabilize others if you are internally destabilized. Protection amplifies service quality. Another layer of insulation is energetic single-tasking. Multitasking fractures attention, forcing your nervous system into rapid context switching that increases cognitive load and drains executive function. Devotional focus means one task, full presence, defined closure. Completion signals safety. Fragmentation signals threat. When you honor sequential focus, your flame concentrates instead of scattering. Creativity deepens. Time expands. Output becomes more meaningful with less strain. This is Vesta's precision expressed through productivity that respects physiology. Also notice sensory intake. Continuous noise prevents neural recovery. Constant visual stimulation exhausts processing capacity. Schedule sensory quiet. No audio, no scrolling, no conversation. Let perception rest. In silence, your internal signal becomes audible again. Intuition speaks softly. Exhaustion shouts. If you only hear shouting, silence has been absent too long. There is also relational insulation. Not every emotional wave requires your immersion. Empathy without boundaries becomes enmeshment. You can care without carrying. You can witness without absorbing. Practice compassionate detachment. I see your experience, and I remain centered in mine. This preserves connection without sacrificing coherence. Your nervous system stays regulated. Your flame remains intact. And something subtle begins to change socially. People feel safer around regulated presence. Your calm becomes contagious. Your steadiness communicates leadership without dominance. This is quiet power. Now consider what to avoid in this phase. Avoid doom scrolling disguised as awareness. Avoid overcommitting disguised as generosity. Avoid constant commentary disguised as relevance. These behaviors fracture attention and drain vitality. What is being tested is your relationship with stimulation. Can you choose depth over volume? Can you value stillness over speed? Can you let moments pass without inserting yourself? Restraint is strength here. The universe is observing energetic discipline, not performative intensity. What is quietly aligning is your capacity for sustained focus, for meaningful creation, for presence that nourishes rather than depletes. You are building endurance of the soul, not just stamina of the schedule. And as insulation strengthens, your body confirms alignment. Sleep deepens, breath smooths, emotional reactivity softens. Joy returns without spectacle. This is the somatic signature of sovereignty. Your sacred fire no longer fights for oxygen. It receives it. Tending replaces striving. Devotion replaces depletion. You become a sanctuary in motion, carrying centeredness into environments that once scattered you. This is how inner protection becomes lived reality. There is a rhythm beneath everything you experience, a celestial metronome that does not rush and does not stall. And when you align with it, effort transforms into flow. Feel that truth settle into you now. You were never meant to live in constant output. You were designed for cycles of expression and retreat, signal and silence, offering and renewal. The universe runs on structure and timing, and today, March 21st, 2026, marks a threshold where collective acceleration tempts you to override your natural cadence. But your inner flame does not respond to pressure. It responds to alignment. This is where timing becomes protection. When you move with cosmic rhythm, you conserve life force. When you ignore it, you burn inefficiently. Vesta energy teaches strategic devotion, not continuous availability. Your sacred fire strengthens when engagement and withdrawal are intentional. Think of your energy like breath. Inhale is retreat. Exhale is participation. Both are essential. Many people live only in exhale, giving, speaking, producing, reacting, until depletion forces collapse. Conscious timing restores inhale. It grants permission to turn inward before exhaustion demands it. Planetary transits mirror these phases symbolically, offering windows where retreat is amplified, and windows where visibility is supported. You do not need complex calculations to feel this. Your body already senses energetic weather. Some weeks feel socially magnetic yet internally heavy. Others feel quiet yet creatively fertile. These are not mood swings. They are alignment signals. When intensity rises externally, it is often a cue for internal consolidation. When external pace softens, expression flows more naturally. The wisdom is knowing when to step forward and when to step back without guilt. This is your cosmic shield in action. Vesta cycles emphasize periods of consecration, where focused solitude strengthens spiritual infrastructure. During these windows, reduce exposure, limit commitments, deepen rituals, reorganize priorities. What looks like withdrawal is actually reinforcement. You are fortifying foundations so future action carries less strain and more precision. Then come engagement windows where your flame radiates outward with clarity and purpose. Communication flows. Creative output stabilizes. Interactions feel reciprocal rather than draining. Because you honored retreat, presence now feels generous instead of forced. This is sustainable contribution. This is sacred pacing. Retrograde periods, often misunderstood, are especially powerful for strengthening your internal fortifications. Rather than fearing delays, use them as strategic slowdown. Reassess boundaries. Revisit unfinished emotional processes. Reclaim attention from scattered obligations. Retrogrades invite revision, and revision refines integrity. When movement appears stalled, depth becomes available. When progress feels indirect, insight becomes accessible. Nothing is wasted in these cycles. The universe is not blocking you. It is redirecting energy from expansion to stabilization, and stabilization protects the flame. Emotional mirror this moment honestly. You may feel behind. You may feel pressure to keep up with peers, platforms, expectations. You may wonder if stepping back means losing relevance. This anxiety is understandable in a culture that worships visibility. But relevance without resonance is hollow. Speed without alignment is brittle. The universe is not asking you to compete. It is inviting you to synchronize. Your power increases when your timing matches your design. What is being tested now is patience. Can you trust unseen preparation? Can you honor low output phases without self-criticism? Can you release comparison long enough to hear your own rhythm? Avoid impulsive commitments made from fear of missing out. Avoid filling quiet space with noise to prove productivity. Avoid mistaking stillness for stagnation. Stillness is integration. Integration strengthens signal. What is quietly aligning is precision. Your decisions become cleaner. Your yes becomes rarer and more powerful. Your no becomes calmer, and more final. People begin to feel the difference. Your presence carries weight because it is not constant. Your contributions land because they are well-timed. This is energetic credibility. Living as the sovereign flame means structuring daily life around internal rhythm rather than external urgency. Morning begins with centering before consumption. Work blocks follow natural focus waves rather than endless multitasking. Breaks are intentional resets, not accidental collapses. Evenings become gentle descent instead of stimulated drift. Over time, this lifestyle recalibrates intuition. You sense when to speak and when to listen, when to initiate and when to observe, when to engage the world and when to protect the hearth. The long-term benefits are subtle yet profound. Your nervous system stops bracing for interruption. Creativity becomes renewable. Emotional responses slow into thoughtful replies. You stop chasing momentum and start generating gravity. Others feel steadiness in your field and trust your guidance without persuasion. Your flame becomes a beacon, not because it is loud, but because it is unwavering. This is leadership through coherence. A devotion expressed as consistency. Protection expressed as presence. And here is your final call to action. Guard your timing as fiercely as your energy. Schedule retreat before exhaustion. Choose engagement with intention. Treat attention as sacred currency. Build your fortress daily through small, consistent acts of self-devotion. Let your creative fire warm the world without allowing the world to consume it. If this message found you at the precise moment you needed it, honor that alignment. Subscribe. Return. Walk this path with us. Your sovereign flame is not meant to burn alone. This moment will make sense later.